Hello and welcome to episode 24 of Shared Discovery, the show and podcast dedicated to sharing the many exciting and enjoyable aspects of games and gaming. I'm your host, Victor. Today, we're once again joined by Brad. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Victor?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's good to have you on for two. We got you for two episodes.
No, it's a rare occurrence.
We got a great topic lined up, but before we get into that, what have you been up to since the last episode?
Well, since the last episode, I've kind of taken a breather to, rummage my thoughts, see what matters most to me, so I can prioritize getting into this episode here.
Yeah, you don't really have a lot of time. It was only yesterday that we did last episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just yesterday. Same clothes and everything.
Exactly.
Have you been, so in the last episode we talked about you haven't had much time to play games, but what games have you been playing when you do get time?
Yeah, so like I mentioned in the last episode, if you guys were watching, I'll never stop gaming. Gaming is a part of everything I do. I gamify whatever I come to, even reading. I'm a really big reader.
Oh, yeah.
I sent you my Goodreads, and
Sure.
I've been having a lot of fun with that one. There's quite a bit there. So I kind of just gamify that, and when you can start to get the score, like I have a score of reading books.
Okay.
How can you gamify reading books?
Yeah, what the heck?
But I'm literally addicted to it like I was addicted to WoW.
Nice.
That's the biggest game that I have is reading.
Okay.
But I have a mobile game called Archero that I
Okay.
play. The only one that I play consistently and regularly is Here to Slay and Dungeons and Dragons, just because it's such an easy way to connect. Rather than being just to play the game, it's more of a medium to get around the people you enjoy.
The role-playing aspect of it,
Absolutely.
the socializing aspect of it, and it's funny that you mentioned Here to Slay, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. Like I brought you on and I was like, okay, what's a perfect game for us to play? To talk about, to do a deep dive series on is Here to Slay, because we play that all the time. We've played it so many times over the years, and it's one of our favorite games, so that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be doing a deep dive series on Here to Slay, and for those of you who haven't watched or have watched, what we're going to do is we're going to do an overview of the game. We're going to give you an overview of how it plays. We're going to teach you the rules, teach you how to set up the game. We'll do a little bit of a demo, so we'll play here live on the overhead camera, just so you can see that. We'll do some we'll do some turns with our hands revealed. We'll do some turns without, just to play that, so they can see it, right?
Yeah.
And
good intro type.
Exactly. And then what we always do here is teach them how to be better, right? What are some of the strategies for the game, right? And then what are some pros and cons, so they can decide if they even want to play the game.
I think that's kind of a good theme for shared discovery in general. We're here to play games and we want to strategize. Once we figured out the strategy, let's share it. We discovered it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no going back from that point. Let's
share this with you, and let's help you discover if you want to even play this, and maybe add a new game to their collection, right? But I got a question for you. You know this. You know how this goes now.
I do.
You've been on the show. You've been a co-host. So I got a good question for you. So you said you like D&D.
Yep.
Have you ever played one-shots?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me, what do you like about one-shot campaigns?
Yeah, so one-shots, just for anybody that doesn't know what a one-shot is. So when you play a D&D campaign, it's typically over weeks to months before you get to the final boss and accomplish the goal that you're doing. Whereas in a one-shot, you have a board game similar to the one that's right in front of us, where there's an objective that you have to get through in that one sitting. So on the one side, D&D is amazing because it allows you to really get into somebody. And as we've seen with TV shows, the character development comes in the later seasons.
Sure.
Unfortunately, you don't have that with the one-shots, so that's a piece that's a little bit missing, and you have to work a little extra hard to role play. But at the same time, my favorite thing about one-shots is you can play it with anybody. It's designed to pick up and put down, where you don't have all of the things on life weighing you down. You can at least put, an hour or two into this one shot, and there's typically multiple ways to play that one shot as long as you get to that end goal.
Exactly.
So that's one of my favorite parts.
It's like a short, abridged version of D&D, where the DM's going to construct a scenario for you within, I'd say, 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah, that's about
2 to 6 hours, right? That range where you can meet that goal and you never touch it again. It's like a cool, like, it's kind of like playing a movie is kind of a way to put it, right? Like, you have this character, you go do this scenario, you don't touch it again. Or sometimes you do. We've done that with one shots. We pick it back up way later.
Exactly. Like some of your favorite movies you've probably watched 10 plus times. I can't really think of any off the top of my head that I've watched 10 plus, but if with a good one shot, you may play it like 4 or 5 times. May play it with a different group. Might talk about it, but really get you in that.
But it's nice, this nice self-contained experience, especially for people that can't keep playing long-running, year-long sessions, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, one of my last campaigns with D&D, it actually ended because he couldn't make enough time.
Yep.
It's such a commitment to get into D&D.
It really is.
And if you have life, family, kids, and all these other things weighing down on you, it's just, that's what the one shot's made for. The people that don't have enough time, or really the want to dive into something that's such a commitment. So that's my favorite thing. It's easy to play with whoever you want, and everybody can get enjoyment out of it.
It's a really good intro way into D&D. So why are we talking about D&D? This isn't a D. We did the D&D episode, right?
Well,
so
there's that new game.
So why are we talking about? Oh, Baldur's Gate. Listen, they know I've been playing Baldur's Gate. Well, the reason why I ask you if you like one shots is because Here to Slay feels a lot like playing a one shot D&D campaign, because you're building parties, you're slaying monsters in a really self-contained little, like, it depends on the number of players, but 30 minutes to 2 hours.
Yeah.
2 hours is really stretching, but it's 30 minutes to an hour and a half.
Yeah, it says 30 to 60. We've definitely had some pretty long
We've had some long ones, but it feels like this really light, simpler version of a D&D one-shot. So I wanted to get that out there and say, like, this might be the type of game for you if you come from a D&D background, right? Yeah. But we have a disclaimer here at the beginning of the episode, right? That for those podcast listeners out there, and we do this for all of our deep dives, we tell them they might be worth coming to visit the YouTube to check out the video component, because we're going to be showing you how to set up. We're going to have a lot of visual components, and we're going to actually demo the games.
And it's a very visually appealing game.
Oh, it's a great
Some people might disagree, but just like art is subjective, I find most people think that this is a very visually pleasing game.
Absolutely. I've heard that too. So, okay. What I like to do now, I like to let my co-host read the back of the box, right?
Oh, okay.
The designers took time to craft this to get you hooked. So get me hooked. Get them hooked.
Whoa, they even have playable characters you can customize yourself. Cool. All right, so Here to Slay.
Are you ready to slay? Here to Slay is a strategic role-playing fantasy card game from the creators of Unstable Unicorns. In this game, you'll assemble a full party of heroes and slay dangerous monsters while sabotaging your enemies. Brace yourself for a fast-paced, adorable, and utterly destructive adventure.
I gotta ask, can you do that voice the whole episode?
I sure can. I'm a D&D player.
My throat hurts already. But
I don't know if I can laugh like that, though.
Oh, God. We're not One Piece characters, okay? So that they made this hook to that, and I think this really sums up what the game's all about. So it's about sabotaging and your friends and making enemies and building this party and slaying enemies. And slaying monsters. So I love reading the back of the box because they took time to craft this.
Yeah, they put time into that.
Designers took a lot of thought and a lot of time. So let's tell you about that. But let's get into the overview of the game, right? So it's like D&D, but it's not, right? It's different games. So how does it play? So it's a free-for-all style competitive card game in which players assume the role of one of 14 or 15.
We'll
go over that. Party leader characters, because there are some Kickstarter exclusives. I guess we should say that here. Some of the parts that I have are from the Kickstarter version, but all of the rules we're going to teach you apply to the base game as well. But you take on the role of a party leader, all with their own unique abilities and classes, in order to assemble a diverse party of heroes and slay monsters, right?
Like D&D, you can't just have, excuse me, you can't just have 5 fighters. They'd be fighting amongst themselves.
We're doing an all barbarians campaign soon. Oops, all barbarians. I'll let you know how it goes. But you want diversity in your group to use the strengths of the group. And so the game has the base game. It started on Kickstarter, so the Kickstarter version is going to cost more, but you can get the base game online $30, something like that, right? Pretty cheap. But there's 3 expansions at this point, and it's probably the end of the expansions, but there's Druids and Warriors, Berserkers and Necromancers, and then a Christmas expansion, which I'm so upset.
And I learned about that one recently.
I'm so upset.
I have my own copy of this, but it's incomplete.
I have the Christmas one.
Yeah.
And I didn't bring it for the studio. I messed up. I had one job. So the holiday one is called Here to Slay, spelled like a sled. Slay.
Santa's sleigh.
And so the disclaimer here is that we're not going to be talking about that holiday episode because it brings in brand new mechanics to the game that change how you win.
Okay.
So,
which is realistically like kind of changes the whole game when you change how to win.
It's pretty interesting. It changes all the strategies. So I'd have to change the show notes. I don't want to do more work.
Yeah,
My prioritize. We talked about that last episode. And so the game is designed for 2 to 6 players.
Okay.
And the matches last, which we already said, between 30 to an hour and a half. The longest we've had is 2 hours, and now it's like 6-player game.
Yeah, and that's when everybody kind of wants to make it go that long, because like there's ways to drag this out a little bit excessively, but it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. If you like that, that's great. It's a great 2 hours. But those longer games have also been for new players. While the rules are pretty simple, anytime you play with new players, it's gonna be a little longer. And so now, let's talk about the rules. How do they play the game? And I think it's important. Tell them how they win.
Yeah. So. Anytime you get into a game, even if it's the game of life, you want to know how to win that game.
I'm going to crack the box while you're talking.
Yeah, go for it. So when you come to Here to Slay, it's very simple. There's only there are only a couple ways to win. The main way that you win is, I guess I don't want to say the main way that you win. There's 2 main ways that you win. Getting a diverse party where you have either 6 different classes if it's the base game, and or 7 different classes if it's the expansion, because there's more cards in there. It's higher likelihood that you're going to get those different classes. So they had to change the rules a little bit for the more the expansions when they come out.
And the expansions, so the base game has 9 classes, and the expansions ups it to 11. So they shifted that from 6 to 7 to compensate for that.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of balances it out on the other end. With the other way that you win is by fighting monsters. There's a certain party requirement where you need a specific class in order to fight that monster, but every monster is different, the requirement that it takes, and depending on that requirement, once you defeat 3 monsters, you win. And it's one of the surest ways to win is to just get those 3 monsters. Nobody can affect those monsters. Just 1, 2, 3 turns and you win if that's the way that you want to go.
So it boils down to 2 strategies, right? 2 things that feel really D&D, right? Slay monsters, build a strong party. And these 2 overlap throughout the game too, as you'll see as we go on. But what are the 11 classes?
So the 11 classes that we have, it's very similar to D&D. There's a little bit of overlap, I believe. The first one you have is a fighter, guardian, ranger, thief, wizard, bard, druid, sorcerer, warrior, berserker, and necromancer.
Okay.
And just to point out the difference, the necromancer, the berserkers, the warrior, and the druid, those are from the expansion.
Yes.
Is it, since we have the visual component, are they able to see this right now?
Yeah, they are. So what you can see here on the overhead camera is I laid out all the classes. I tried to do it as you do it. I lagged a little bit, had a little bit of latency here. But what I really like about this game, the aesthetics of it, is each of these 9 classes is represented by a certain animal type, a certain animal group.
Which you can see behind us if you're watching on the YouTube video.
We have a lot of figures here, right? On the studio here that are characters from this game. And so just to go through it, the fighters are bears, the guardians are unicorns, the rangers are foxes, the thieves are cats, the bunnies are wizards. My personal favorite, the bards are squirrels. The
bards are the best class. I love them.
They're so fun.
They have the best names. They do the like cheekiest stuff too.
They're so silly.
Next up is we have the Noble Shaman. It's a druid, and that's a deer. You have the Sorcerers, which are dragons.
Gotta have dragons. Come
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure we don't even have the Sorcerers. I'm pretty
Really?
sure that's
For
a Kickstarter.
Oh, is it really?
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure. I don't remember it.
See, I'm glad we're talking about this because I didn't think about the Kickstarter component.
Yeah.
I just
Because there's a lot of cards in here that I might not have, and they might not be able to get as well.
yes,
so.
but the rules are gonna function the same even if you don't have these Kickstarter cards.
Exactly, and it's the same. It counts as a class. Going back to how you win, you need 6 or 7. In this case, it would be 7 different classes in order to win. You can see that you have 11 here, I believe. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11.
Yes.
You have 11 here. And to continue with the last couples, you have the Warrior, which are those wolves?
The wolves. Yes.
Wolves? Okay.
Yes.
And then you have Berserkers, which are lions? Lions, okay. And then the last one is you have Necromancers, which are hounds.
Yeah, doggos,
Puppies.
Yeah, and so these are what you're gonna do at the beginning of the game. Everyone's gonna choose one of these, and this is going to be their party leader for the game.
Okay.
And you're gonna have this the whole game with you, and you're gonna get this ability that they have, right? There are a few other Kickstarter exclusive ones. There are a couple of dual classes, a classless party leader, but we don't need to go into that for this base game, right? So these are the party leader system, and it's really fun. I like handing out to new players, like to just go pick the animal or the aesthetic that you like the best.
Exactly, because
We'll
they
go
don't
there.
they don't know what it is.
We'll
at
go
that
from there,
point. Let's have
right?
some fun and see what they pick.
And it's so easy to get people invested in this game because they're like, wow, there's dragon, there's cats. I love playing cats. I have a cat myself, right? And so the way that the game is actually played. So what is it on a turn-to-turn basis? And it's an action point based game. This means that each player on their turn has 3 points to spend on different actions that they can perform in any order, right? And there is this handy dandy reference card here that you will have with you throughout the game, and on one side it shows how to win, so it shows the 2 things we talked about, slaying monsters and getting classes in your party, and then it also shows the classes, but it's not updated to include the Berserker and the Necromancer. It doesn't have
the warrior.
those.
It
It
does
does
have
have
the
the warrior and the
druid.
druid.
Okay,
So
cool.
this is a reminder card. It's not perfect, but the actions on this side, these are the actions you can do in the game. So I'll just read that off, right? So you get 3 actions to spend on your turn, and you can use them to perform actions below in any order. So here are the actions. So for 1 action point, you can draw a card from the deck. You can play a hero, item, or magic card.
We'll go over those later.
And we'll go over those later. You can roll to use the effect of a hero. For 2 action points, you can attack a monster, and for 3 action points, you can discard your whole hand and draw 5. So what I really like about this is you hand these to new players, you hand these to returning players, and you always have this reference of like, okay, what can I do on my turn?
I've played dozens of times, and I'll still look at this just to make me feel confident that I'm playing right.
That I'm playing right. And it's just, it's a nice, simple visual of how to play the game. Okay, we should talk about the card types now.
Okay, there's quite a few different card types.
But it boils down to, when you're playing, there are cards that require action points, and there are cards that do not require action points. So I'm gonna start here with the cards that require action points, and the most basic kind of card that we've been talking about, right? You want to fill your party up with these heroes, and these numbers are gonna vary if you don't have the Kickstarter. But in the game that I have with the 2 expansions, there are 99 heroes in the deck. So there are 11 classes. There are no dual class heroes, but there are 9 of each in the deck. Different kinds of those heroes, and they contribute to the main win condition, and they have abilities that help you get ahead in the game. And anytime you use an ability, so
Can we read one of those abilities?
yeah, let's read an ability.
Get an
So
example going.
we'll move the party leaders and monsters here, so we can see some of these heroes. So we have Tough Teddy here. he's a bear. He's a fighter, and he says 4+. Each other player with a fighter in their party must discard a card. So what does this 4+ mean?
Well, you see, we got our cool fancy dice that they come with here, and I absolutely love them and use them anytime I can.
Oh, yeah.
But basically, what a 4+ means is a 4 or higher, and it's important because there's other cards where it's you need to get that number or lower.
Yeah.
It's a very specific situation. I'll get into that in a little bit, but essentially, if I roll a 4 and a 6, a 4 and a 2, that means I got a 6 that's higher than the 4, and I don't. Unfortunately, I don't get to use his ability.
And for those of you that are listening, anytime you play an ability or anytime you are called to roll, you play a hero, you use an ability, you roll the dice, you roll 2 6-sided dice. And these are to determine the success of abilities, right? And so we have Shurikitty here, right? It's a cat thief. So whenever you look at a card, you'll see the symbol that matches its class. You'll see the number for the threshold for the ability to be successful, 9+ in this case. I play it. I'm going to roll to see if I can destroy someone else's hero. I was not successful because I rolled 4, but if I say I rolled a 9, was successful. These are the backbone of the game. You're trying to fill up your party with a bunch of heroes, as diverse as possible, to help you get advantage and defeat monsters. So the next card type here.
Is it still action type that you want to get into?
Yeah, we're still talking about the card types that require action. So the next card type that requires action point is an item card.
Okay.
And
so since we just did the roll, let's do the particularly rusty coin next, and then we can talk about the mask.
Absolutely. So of items, there are regular items and cursed items.
Okay.
Every single item can be attached to anyone's hero. Each hero can only have one item attached to it unless it says otherwise. There are some heroes that have icons down the bottom that say they can have 2, but for this, basically every hero can have one item attached to it.
Okay.
The regular items give a bonus, the cursed ones give a negative effect. And there are reasons why you would play them on other players. There's reasons why you play them on yours. But there's much less of the cursed items in the game. And so this one will also take an action point, and typically what you want to do is make your heroes better at doing what they do, right?
Because there's some really, really strong abilities that if you can get that character out, you basically want to use his ability every turn if you can. That's a specific thing. You don't get the ability to use it multiple times per turn.
Yep.
The way that works is you get to, as soon as you play a card, remember you have 3 actions. So if I had an entire hand of 5 cards, I had first action, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Tough Teddy like Victor did earlier.
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to roll like I did earlier, and unfortunately, I didn't get the roll that I needed to use Tough Teddy's ability. So what I'm going to do next is I unfortunately can't use anything else with Tough Teddy this turn. I can put on a coin, or I can put on an item to Tough Teddy, but I can't use his ability since I've already done it.
Yeah.
Say next turn though, if I wanted to use each other player with a fighter in their party must discard a card. Well, that's pretty good because as I set up here a little bit, I noticed that he has a fighter here. It's not the turn I play it, so if I wanted to use that ability, well, I have to use one action, which is kind of a downside. So if you can play another card or another hero instead of using one that's already played, that goes into action economy. You want to make the most of your actions as you can. Instead of using what's already there and getting a lesser effect from it. So,
and we'll get into strategies a little bit more deeply here, but what's great about heroes is you play them, as long as someone doesn't destroy them, they stay in your party, and once per turn you can try to use their abilities again. So things like these items can help you use them better, or give you a bonus if you're unsuccessful. So for example, I'm going to spend an action point to equip this particularly rusty coin to Tough Teddy, and this says, if you unsuccessfully roll to use the equip hero's effect, you draw a card. Really good, right?
So, and that's really good because if you remember the 3 actions, one of those actions is to draw. And one of those actions is to use the ability. If you don't get to use the ability, well, you still get to draw. So there was no waste.
There's no downside there. Absolutely. So those are items. Those are heroes. They each take 1 action point. The next thing that takes 1 action point are playing magic cards. And magic cards are one-time powerful effects that cost an action point and will do something just really powerful, right? So we have a few here. We have Winds of Change. Return an item equipped to any player's hero to their player's hand and then draw a card. Good. Boom. Get rid of their item, draw a card. Critical Boost says draw 3 and discard. more cards in our hand. Awesome. Captivating Spell says +3 to your rolls until end of turn. And what do we say? Rolls are so important. So any bonuses you get to your rolls is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. So these are one-time effects that you're going to want to use strategically. And the last card type in the game that requires actions are monsters. And these monsters, what you'll do is you'll shuffle the monster deck, and there will always be 3 monsters sitting face up.
Yeah, this guy's so cool. I don't
in the
have him
middle
in
of
my
the table.
expansion.
Oh, so there are Kickstarter monsters too.
And you can tell that the double requirement over.
So. Yeah, so when you look at a monster, what you're going to see is it's going to say requirement. And the requirement tells you what kinds of classes and characters you need in your party to be able to even challenge the monster, right?
Okay.
So for this one, it says it has the bard symbol, the rogue symbol, and a gray H. And the gray H just can be represented by any hero in your party. So I need, in my
And just
party,
a quick on that one. Does that count as the party leader itself?
and your party leader cannot count for that gray H. It has to be a hero.
Okay, but if I had a bard party leader,
That
does
could count for that bard symbol.
and I would have to have a different hero.
You would have to have a different hero. Absolutely. So, for example, this first monster here, the Clawed Nightmare, requires a bard, which can be your party leader, a rogue, and any hero. So 3 entities to attack this monster. So anytime you look at these, look for the requirement. When you meet the requirement, you're going to say, I'm going to spend 2 action points to challenge this monster. And each monster will have 2 thresholds. It'll have a minus threshold and a plus threshold. So the Clawed Nightmare says 6 minus, and then not 9 plus. It's typically the plus says I successfully slayed it.
Yeah.
Oh, and then
And
the
he said typically because it's not always.
not
You
always.
have to pay attention
Read
to
your
what
cards.
it is.
Read the cards, and then the negative is typically bad. So this one says sacrifice a hero.
Yeah.
Move a hero from my party to the discard. We don't want that to happen. But anytime you defeat a monster, move it to your party. It stays there forever, and then you get the effect that it says at the bottom. Reveal another one, and everyone has access to challenging these monsters. Okay, so
And
those are
that's kind of important what he said here is because you get the ability for the rest of your rest of the game.
rest of the game.
Not the rest of the turn. So let's listen to this one. It says each time you play a magic card, draw a card. Think about if you had a different. We haven't gotten to it yet, but one of the party leader's ability is each time you play a magic card, draw a card. So you can start to see that the synergy between this card. If I had this guy as my leader, if I had the Cloaked Sage as my leader, well, I would probably be gunning for the Volt Claw because of how well it plays together. So really pay attention to what's
Pay
down there
attention
because it
to-
stacks up so much. It compounds
it's really
interest.
very important. These abilities can warp the game.
It really can.
So those are the 4 card types that require actions: heroes, items, magic, and attacking monsters. But there are 2 card types that don't require actions. What are those?
Yeah, so my favorite one, actually, I'll go to my favorite last, but the next one, since we're still in the vein of talking about monsters and how to fight monsters, so monsters typically have a higher slay than other things. Not necessarily, but the better it is, if it had an amazing ability, you're probably going to need to get like a 10 or an 11.
plus, yep.
And that's pretty unlikely because you have to get a 5 and a 6.
I think I forgot to say, yeah, you challenge the monster, you roll the dice. And we mentioned that earlier, but anytime there's a threshold, you roll the dice. You're rolling them constantly throughout the game.
Yeah, and imagine trying to get an 11 or 12. You're probably not even going to challenge it as much as something that's like a 7. So
Yeah.
in order to make it even and try to get the things that are really worth it, but a little bit more difficult, they might say a sacrifice 2 heroes or something crazy like that. We really want to avoid something like that. And the card in here, the way that we can avoid that if our rolls just suck because luck is against us sometimes, is what's called a modifier card. And these, you can play it on anybody's rolls.
Yep.
If he were to try to fight this monster and I have a negative card, for example, this -4 here, well, he's going to get it. I don't want him to get it. I'm going to do everything that I can to prevent him from getting it. So what I'm going to do is play the -4. What he's going to do is follow it up with a +4. What the other person on the other or around the table, what we're hoping they do is follow up with like a +2 or a -2
And these
or
are
whatever.
great. These really make the game feel super interactive because sometimes you get into these interactions where 6 modifiers are played, right? And you can, like you said, any dice roll, yours or opponents, you can use them to help them ruin theirs, get your dice rolls, but these can be anytime.
And
so
like
hold
think about
on to
it.
these.
Yeah, and like think about it. If somebody's using something to make somebody with a fighter discard, if you don't have a fighter and you want that to succeed because they have a fighter and they're gonna win, well, you can help somebody else prevent that person from winning. Doesn't directly help you win, but that's kind of how
Keeps
it's a
you
free
in the game longer.
keeps you in the win. So it does help. That kind of does help you win. Yeah, but those are modifier cards. Pretty straightforward, and you can start to stack this pretty crazily. If you wanted to fight something with like a guaranteed, well, you would draw a bunch and make sure that before you even attempt to challenge it, you either have cards that augment your rolls, or you have heroes that you can use to give you certain advantages to fight that.
Yeah, absolutely. These are such fun cards to play. And you kind of led into this a little bit. It's this next card type, and these are called challenges.
Can you play this card?
Play the Vicious Wildcat?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to play the Vicious Wildcat.
No, you're not. Challenge.
So a challenge card says anytime anyone tries to play a hero, item, or magic card, you can play your challenge and try to stop them from doing it.
It's important that it says hero, magic, or item, and it's the playing of a card. You can't challenge somebody attacking a monster. It's simply playing a card.
And that tries to stop them. So what will happen, you challenge them, and the two of you will have a roll-off, which means you both roll your d6s and compare the results. So I got a 9.
Okay, let's go ahead and give it a roll.
You got a 6. So I won, so I get to keep my character. But if you got the 9, I wouldn't lose. I'd lose my hero. It'd go to the discard pile. And you want to keep these challenges around in case someone's trying to win or they have a really good hero, right? And what I will say about challenges is if there's ever a tie, the person who played the challenge wins the tie.
The challenger wins.
The challenger wins.
And just to give you a little bit of perspective of how powerful the challenge cards are, it literally prevents people from winning. That's one of the only ways that you can have to stop somebody from winning by playing a card, because if you go back to how you win, you only need a certain number of hero cards. You have to prevent them from playing that last hero. So if you don't have a challenge and it's getting really close to the end, well, you should probably draw to make sure you don't lose.
Absolutely.
Where I was going to go with the Vicious Wildcat, though, in this challenge, the reason why I wanted you to play that is because this is such a strong card.
Yeah, what does it say?
It's a 12 plus, so if you didn't have any modifiers, you're going to have to get a perfect roll.
Perfect roll.
And that's why the modifier +4, you only need an 8 to still get it, but slay any monster card, then end your turn.
Boom. Just
think about how
kill
powerful
it. Just
that is.
instantly kill that.
I don't even have to, there's no downside to even attempting to do it. It's one action for something that costs 2 action. So think about this. If you have 3 actions, I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself because
you're getting into the strategies, so we're going to have to move on to some play here after this.
Yeah, so to continue this one real quick, think about it. If I attack it with my first 2 actions and I play this and I get to get 2 monsters in one turn, I'm one turn away from
strategy.
winning.
So if I can challenge you and prevent you from doing that.
Exactly.
Boom. Okay.
Sorry,
that's okay. You're getting excited. We love this game here. But that wraps it up, right? The challenges, you cannot challenge modifiers, but you can challenge heroes, items, and magic cards. So just remember, as you're playing, there are cards that require actions, which will be on your what to do. It's on your turn card, and there are cards that don't require actions, which will tell you on the card when you can play them. But I think we should do a little bit of demo. So let's teach them how to set up the game. And so what you're going to do is each player is going to pick a party leader.
Who looks good, guys?
And while you're doing that,
Raging Manticore? Is that who you're feeling? All right, yeah.
I'm going to play the Cloaked Sage, which on each of your party leaders, they're going to have a static ability, and it's going to tell you the class. So my party leader is a wizard, and yours is a berserker. Cool, so we picked those. So now, after that, we're going to shuffle the deck, and we're going to deal 5 cards to each player. So we don't need the whole deck right now, but this was pre-shuffled, so I'll just give you 5 real quick, and I'll give me 5 real quick, and you put that in the middle of the table. I'm setting aside extra cards here, and we'll set aside these extra cards as well. And then after that, we shuffle the monster deck, which we already did, and then you flip 3 of these, because remember, there's always 3 revealed at a time here. And then we randomly determine how you go first in your play group. We usually just roll the the dice and see who gets the highest result.
I think the rules say youngest, but
I think
it's always
up to
house
you.
rules.
So I got 8.
All right. And I got 5.
Okay, so once the turn order is determined, we just begin. So we're going to do a few turns here with a demo. So on the demo, let's just play with our hands revealed. I have my 5 cards. Start of my turn happens, I have 3 action points. So for my turn, I want to play a hero. So that's 1 action point. It is a Royal card. It's a Lion Berserker. And then it says 9+. Choose a class, return every hero card of that class to the respective player's hand. And this is important because that we just started.
Yeah.
Nobody has any classes. I can choose not to roll if I don't want to.
Okay, that's a very important piece.
So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move on. I have 2 action points left. So I'm going to look at what I have here, and then I'm going to use an action point to draw a card. Okay, cool. I like that. I'm going to save that for later. And then I'm going to draw again, right?
Okay.
That's my 3 action points. There's nothing I can do else I can do. I'll pass the turn to you.
Okay, so what I'm already looking at to see if I can do, it's not possible right away, but my brain thinks of how can I attack. I'm not really going to attack right now, but I have a guy that goes for attack, so I'm going to start drawing cards to see if I can. See if there's anything that helps me. Not really, so I've already used 1 action. I'm going to go ahead and change the order of these so it's clear on camera. But I'm just going to play a hero, Heavy Bear. Choose a player. That player must discard 2 cards.
Oh, rude.
And cards are how you win the game. So this is a pretty strong card because it's a 5+. That's pretty easy to get. I got 7. So now he has to discard 2 cards. He gets to choose what those are because it's a discard. Oh, man.
I don't want to discard 2 cards, so I'm going to modify your roll.
Ah, dang.
I'm going to give you a -3. So I'm going to get you down to 4 so you're not successful.
So 5+. Well, I want him to discard it, so I'm going to give myself that 1+.
Oh, man.
So now he actually has to discard 2
You're
cards.
at a 5. So, man, if I'm going to have to discard 2 anyway, I might as well use this modifier.
Hey, exactly.
So -1. You can't get the roll.
And, well, I unfortunately don't have any more modifiers, so I don't get to play this guy.
Nobody has any other chance to respond. So you do get to keep the card. Remember, it stays in your party. I didn't challenge it. The effect just doesn't happen.
Oh, it wasn't a challenge.
It wasn't
My
a challenge.
Bad. So that's a good point because whenever you challenge a card, you're challenging the playing of that card, not the effect. What I did here was to roll to see if I got the effect.
So I canceled your effect, but you still keep that hero, which is really important because that counts towards the total count of getting to 7 classes represented.
Yeah, it's very important because there's still some benefit to this. It's not completely dead.
Yeah.
And for my last one, cards are how you win this game, so I'm going to go ahead and draw another card.
Okay.
That's pretty cool looking
That's
guy.
awesome. So now it's my turn. You're out of action. So I'm like, okay, I'm looking here. I'm going to take a look at the monsters that are available at the moment. What I'm going to do, I don't want to fight any of those, so I'm going to play for 1 action point, I'm going to play a magic spell. And this magic spell says discard every card in your hand, then draw 4.
Huh.
So 1, 2, 3, 4. But my party leader also says each time you play a magic spell, draw a card. So we'll draw an additional one.
So you're totally going for Volt Claw, huh?
I might be. It looks really good. So I looking at my hand, I'm like, wow, I like this hand a lot better. This is great.
Look at the colors.
I know.
You're so much closer to winning because you're one class away from winning at this point.
Absolutely. If I can get these onto the battlefield. And for those of you that aren't watching, each of these classes is represented by a different color. There's color coordination, so I really like what you said there. It's really easy at a glance to say, oh, I'm close to winning.
Yeah.
Just by colors alone.
And when you're looking at a table, you can see that this person has he has a lot of that color. She has a lot of that color. Ooh.
That's a
That's
rainbow.
a lot of colors.
There's a rainbow over there. Oh no. Okay, so that was my first action, right? I got a new hand. What am I going to do? I'm going to play something else. So I'm going to play this Wise Shield. It is a Guardian Unicorn with 6+. I'm going to roll to see if I can get this ability. And if it's successful, which it was, I got an 11. I have +3 to all of my rolls until the end of my turn.
Okay, so I have a challenge card. Here's a question for you. At what point do you have the ability to challenge, because I would want to know whether that ability is even worth it before you go to roll for it. So do you have to read the ability as you're playing a card?
Yeah, it actually says in the rules here, the challenger, when you can choose to challenge. So when modifying a challenge roll, you must wait until, hold on. Okay. So each card can only be challenged once, and then
Actually, because my question is like, do you have to read the ability off so people know how good that card is?
There's some nuance in this.
Because that's how we've been playing whenever we play. It's like, all right, you have to give everybody a chance to say Uno before you win the game. Kind of same thing here. You have to make sure that the card is actually worth challenging. You can't just be like, challenge. I mean, you sure can, but I mean, the person playing should give the other players the opportunity to be like, all right, here's what I want to do. Anybody? And then they roll for it.
It doesn't say, but I think that's, giving them a chance to challenge. What it does say is when modifying, so using modifier cards on a challenge roll, you may wait until both players have rolled before deciding whether or not to modify. So you can see the results. But I think that's good practice, right? I just sped through that. I should have said, okay, here's Wise Shield. Does anyone have any challenges? Here's what the effect does. That's good. That's a good practice.
You don't necessarily need to ask, like, is there any Unos?
Yeah. Just play it and read the card and give them time, because I didn't give you any time. That's good practice there for sure. So, do you want to challenge it?
No.
Okay. So I was successful. I have +3 to all of my rolls. So I'm going to play another card. I'm going to play this Ranger that called Bullseye. It says 7+. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Of the deck, add 1 to your hand, then return the rest to the top in any order. So, wow, I'm getting good rolls. Why am I wasting my good rolls live?
Yeah.
So, I got 11 + 3, successful. So, I'll look at the top 3.
There's definitely something true to that. Like, there's definitely, like, roll karma. Where if you've
I feel like it.
You have to get good at it.
So, that is my turn. I used up my 3 action points by using Magic card and playing 2 heroes, so I'll pass the turn to you.
Alrighty, so my favorite thing is always to draw, and this is a little, actually, I'm going to take it back. I'm going to strategize a little bit, because I noticed this guy has a specific requirement in order to be able to fight it. And just because I know how strong that combo is, it doesn't benefit me as much as it benefits him, but I absolutely don't want him to get it. What I'm going to do is... in order to fight him, I have to have a hero, and I have to discard a magic card. So I don't like this magic card. It says return every equipped item to its respective player's hand. We don't have any items, as you can see. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to discard that, and I have the ability to try to fight this guy. And he has a modifier. We don't know that yet.
You wouldn't know that, though.
We would not know that yet. And I got an 11. With an 11, I had to get a +7, or a 7 or above. So even if he modified it, what are you going to do, Vic?
Well, I know that my -4 doesn't stop you from getting it, so I'm just going to let you get it.
Nice. So each time I play a magic card, I get to draw a card. And that was 3 actions. Was it 3? Did I draw first?
You did not draw.
So I still have my 1 action.
You still have
That's
your 1
pretty
action.
dang cool. And I'm going to draw. Hey, challenge.
And then whenever a monster is defeated, you reveal another one, so there's always 3 for the table to challenge, right? But I think this is a good stopping point. This is a good point to show how the game's going to flow.
Yeah, we've seen most of the mechanics.
So you see, we saw that you now have a monster that you've slayed. 2 more, you win. We see that I've played some heroes, and I'm up to 4 unique classes, and 3 more, and I win. So you can see how this loops around back and forth in the game. And as you're playing, you don't have to play with your hands revealed, and you'll keep that as
absolutely not. Nobody ever sees. You're not supposed to let people see your hands. We're just doing this for the camera.
So that was just a nice
video.
Yeah, a nice little demo of how the game is structured, and you'll keep looping around like that, right? But I think now that we've demoed the game and we've been talking about some strategies throughout, let's touch on those strategies before we move into the pros and cons of the game.
Okay. So what strategy is your favorite?
Okay. So I think, just to say out of the gate, all strategies revolve around these 2 win conditions, right? All strategies try to maximize your ability to kill monsters or get heroes.
Okay.
Right? So what I like to think of and tell new players is like, I don't know what to do. Just look at your party leader first. Your party leader often has an ability that will guide how you're playing the game.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about it, but that's what I did immediately. I was like, I know that this is a slay monster, so I'm looking to slay monster. And actually, I missed an important piece there. That's why you have to read all your cards every time you're doing everything. This guy's benefit was each time you slay a monster card, draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
So since I got that monster card, I was able to draw 2 more cards, which puts me so much further ahead in most situations than Victor was at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so mine guided me too. It says each time you play a magic card, draw a card. So I'm looking for things that do the same thing, or I'm looking to get more magic cards, so I'm flowing through the deck, seeing more cards as I play. So for new players, if you're like, I don't know what to do on my turns, just go to these guys. They might guide you. So the next thing, I think we'll skip ahead to draw a bunch of cards. How do you win the game? The main resource is cards. So try to find ways to draw. You have the action point to draw 1, and a lot of heroes allow you to draw multiple cards.
And it's kind of funny because anytime you get a new player, they just default to drawing cards, and it's interesting. The people that have all these different strategies and want to try different things, the person that just draws the most is usually the person that wins.
Oh, it really is, because you see more cards, you see more options, right? So you can stockpile, like a common strategy is stockpiling things. Stockpile modifiers to protect your attacks and your own heroes. Stockpile a bunch of heroes so you can play them all in sequential order and stop them, right?
Get a bunch of challenge. There's a guy called Challenge Bear over there. If you challenge somebody, you get extra higher rolls for your challenge. So you could just be the gatekeeper for everybody trying to win in that game.
And I'm sure people are like, duh, draw cards. But it's like, come on.
It's kind of, see, and it's obvious, but it's one of those things that's so obvious, you're not really paying attention to it because you only have 3 actions. Well, you know that you want to draw cards. The way that you go about drawing that card is really important because other heroes augment other heroes.
Yeah.
So there's ways to just draw 3 cards every turn, or you can draw like 10. I don't know what the top. That'd be a fun one to dive into to see what the combo
We'll have to
is.
see.
But, it's really about trying to maximize.
And we were talking about this earlier, right? Action economy, and you'll hear this in D&D a lot. D&D has few actions, so you want to do things that get you more advantage than just the one action. A common spell is like grease. Like wizards have a grease spell that they drop down on multiple things. It costs 1 action, but it knocks down 4 players.
Yeah.
That's really effective, and it keeps affecting the battlefield for a while. Yeah. So think about that in these terms too. Like you could spend 1 action point to draw 1 card, 1 for 1, but look for heroes that say, okay, draw 3. Or there's heroes that say, draw up to 7. So
that's
fill up
that's
your
the
hand,
best. If you have 1 card, you play that, and you get to draw 6 for 1 action. Oh boy!
Oh, it feels so good,
it really
right?
does.
And then sometimes you just have to take advantage of that 3 action point thing that says discard your hand, draw 5. Sometimes it's okay to just fully reset. Just see 5 brand new cards.
And think about it. If somebody's about to win, I have no way to prevent them from winning, and they're next. I just know that they're going to win. No modifiers in my hand, no challengers, nothing like that. I don't want to lose. I'm going to just discard everything on my last action.
I'm going to look for something. In Magic and card games, we call this digging for an answer.
Yeah.
We're going to dig for an answer. And that's totally something you can do. Because if you're still in the game, you still have a chance to win.
Yeah.
Right? So draw. Try to find ways to make it even better. And something I put here next is just play your heroes as you have them.
And see, this is one when I was reading it, I wasn't really sure how to implement this strategy because a lot of times I'll end up with the same classes that I'm like, I don't want to overlap on the class because the way that we win is by different classes. And that's one that you're going to have to kind of explain the benefit for playing it right away versus holding on to it and hoping that somebody just doesn't kill my fighter and I have a new fighter to replace it. So can you go into that?
I like this strategy of just flooding the board with multiple of a class because sometimes I've been so close to winning before and they just get an effect that says destroy all fighters or destroy one of each person's party leader. Like the
Yeah.
destroy all fighters is antithesis of what we're saying, but destroy one hero in everyone's party. I'm like, And so I've had 2 out, and that has actually cushioned me.
Okay.
They destroy
it's like
it.
a buffer.
It's a buffer, so next turn I have an extra action point where I don't have to play it. So I understand what you're saying of like hiding that information, but sometimes there's a benefit of just getting it out and it's like, try it. You have to remove 2 now.
And that's a good point because there's the thieves in there that can take your cards. So if you really love this fighter,
Yeah.
you don't want to see that fighter go. You might put down extra cards just to make it seem less attractive to somebody that's going for bards or something like that.
Exactly. So this is something that I've found has been successful for me, but sometimes you're right. It's better to hide the information. You just have to weigh what abilities are on the battlefield.
And that kind of goes back to the stockpile your cards, though. So you got to determine if you're stockpiling heroes for this situation, you're stockpiling modifiers or challengers, or can't really. I feel like you can't really stockpile magic cards, though.
It's hard. The deck's kind of limited with magic cards, but
Yeah.
it's if you can do
hold
it,
it,
you can
though.
hold it. But yeah, that just comes back to drawing as many cards as possible. So the next one is political. We had our politics episode of like using your words for advantage, and a big thing in this game is shifting the focus. Like,
Oh, it absolutely. I was like, what do you mean by that?
Look at them, not me. Not me.
It really is. It's like you have to be good with your words and like why you shouldn't attack me. Look at how close to winning that person
Did
is.
you see what they did to you?
Don't you remember 4 turns ago?
Yes, yes. And so really think about these mind games. Think about you using your words, because especially this is really important in games where you have limited amount of action, because it can become an extra action for you. It can save you from having to replay a class if they use destroy that, right? Now I don't have to play my druid again because I destroyed Mitch's instead of mine. This is great. Next
He's
thing,
got another one though.
He's got another one. The next thing I will say is challenge monsters. And the reason I put this here is because there's been many people, the game will end when someone plays a monster and they'll be like, well, I had a challenge in it. It's like, you could have played, how long have you had that? Like 5 turns? Don't be afraid to challenge them. Try to prevent your players from
It's kind of interesting when I played the mana court to just show how powerful monsters are. There's so many nuggets in this podcast here of how to like be really great at this game. And I'm interested to see which one people gravitate towards. Is it going to be the monsters that they love the most, or do they find that playing a specific set of heroes is where they find their enjoyment? I don't know, it's a lot of fun.
It is really interesting. So the next thing I would say, and you mentioned this earlier too, is try to win second. And this is a concept in multiplayer games across the board, but this is the idea of someone tried to win, people spent all their resources, so challenges or modifiers on them. I could just win really easy now. Smooth sailing. Time to go. Find that window.
You don't want to try to win unless you got it. Otherwise, the next person that goes is winning, because they're all going to play their modifiers to prevent you from winning. So if you get the neighbor to your right or left, however ordered house rules is, if you get that person to blow everything they got, and well, nobody can challenge you, nobody can modify it. It's like a default win at that point.
It is. It really is, and it's as old as competitive card games. Okay, you used all your removal on them. My time to shine. The last thing I'll put here is monsters are OP.
Yeah, they are.
Challenge monsters if you feel like you're not getting ahead, because once you have a monster defeated in your party, there are no cards in the game that can interact with them or take them away from you.
Okay, so like the heroes, there's cards to destroy, discard, sacrifice. I don't know if there's any other way to destroy a hero, but you're saying with a monster, once I slay it, there's no cards to do that?
No one can take them. No one can destroy them. They are there. You have them until the game ends. So if you feel like you're stuck, you want the safe bet. Some monsters are hard to challenge, but if you want the safe bet, challenge monsters.
Yep.
So those are their strategies. Those are the cons. Try those out as you're playing the game. But I'm going to go through the pros. We're at the bottom of the hour. So I want to give some pros to playing the game, and we'll let you take on some of the cons here. So, pros. We've talked about a lot of these throughout, so we don't need to linger too long, but flavors and aesthetics, right? It feels like a mini D&D. You're building a party. The art style is great, right? It's so fun. Like, everyone that I play with is like, okay, they pick their favorite class because of the animal that it is. Like, I love the bards because they love the squirrels, right?
Yeah.
They're so funny.
And some people just love the warriors because the wolves.
The wolves are cool, right? So there's something there to attach to. It's a good gateway game, meaning that it's easy to pick up, easy to get started, and it's easy to teach people that may not have played a lot of games. The strategy, it's good for new players to start learning game strategies. If they're like, I want to get into games, it's not an overly complex game, but there's enough depth to start saying, okay, drawing cards, resource management, action economy, these are concepts that are going to apply to a lot of games. I can start learning strategies.
Just something on that note, it's kind of a cool overlap is the way that strategy works is you have to know how to win the game. There's only 2 ways to win this game, so you strategize entirely around that.
You're trying to optimize those too, absolutely. And what I put this here as a pro. The game is going to end. The way that it's designed, there is inertia that since the monsters can't be interacted with, once they're defeated, there's no board wipes that just reset the table. There's no repeatable remove on the boom, boom, boom.
Like, you'll put like turns and turns into this and just wipe everything.
Yeah. And so the removal is unreliable because it's dice, it's chance based. So the game just naturally builds to an end. It's not going to go forever. Action points are great because you always feel like you can do something on your turn.
Yep.
I like that system.
When in doubt, just draw.
And we've already talked about this. It's a highly, highly social game, highly interactive. You can forge alliances. You can steal other people's characters. You can peek at hands. You can sabotage people. Highly interactive if you're into these super social games. And then lastly, the randomness adds for a huge replay value. You're going to see something different each time you play.
Yeah, and the sabotage thing, one of the best things of how there's a lot of replayability. Once you start playing with the same groups, you get to see how those type of people like to play their cards, and you get to interact and counter them in a little bit different ways. You remember who sabotaged you that one time.
Which we call around here meta grudges. Ron came up with that term, right?
I like it. It's outside of that current game.
Absolutely. So what are the cons? Right at the bottom, take us through some of the cons. Okay, cool. Good show.
Yeah, so the cons, as I mentioned earlier, I don't think this is a con, but some people don't like the art. It's like some people don't like the Borderlands style art. Some people don't like pastel art.
Sure.
For whatever reason, I've heard from people that they think the art is too cutesy.
I've heard that too.
I can see it because if you look at them, they have way more soft edges than hard edges. So I can definitely see how that's a big one.
Everyone has their preference, and that's totally fine. But I know people are like, it was a turn off for me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to be that guy because the gameplay is amazing. One of our friends, Mitch, he said he didn't really like the art style, but he played it for the game.
The game kept him there.
The game's a great game. Moving on to another con is strategy. There's a lot of different ways to play this game, but there's only 2 main ways to win. So there is a limited way, a limited number of ways to strategize. Once a game is figured out, you can't really figure it out again. And this game has a very limited amount of that built into it. So that's a big down compared to actual D&D where there's infinite.
Yeah, and some seasoned gamers might be like, it's kind of shallow.
Yeah.
But that's why I said it's really good for intro gamers.
Yeah.
I'll just speed run these because we're at the bottom of the hour.
It was a fun one. We took a little.
Yeah, we got into it. It's great. The action point system, while you feel like you have something to do every turn, some people feel like they don't have a lot to do, especially since you can't get more actions in the game. Sometimes that can make players feel stuck. The interaction can also be a con if you're like some highly competitive people, or the high amount of sabotage in the game can make people salty.
Yeah.
And also some people complain about the randomness as well, where sometimes it just feels difficult to be able to execute on plans. So think about the Cloak Sage. Every time I play a magic card, I draw a card. I'm not always going to get magic cards because the deck's so huge.
That randomness one can lose you the entire game.
Absolutely. So that wraps it up.
Hey, we
Good
did
episode.
it. Well, go ahead and play the game.
Yes, I really want. Yeah, if you tried this game, please let us know. Like, we'd love to hear what your favorite heroes, your party leaders are. We're always arguing which one's the best. We think we're going to make a tier list.
It changes every week, I swear.
Ask us any questions about the game, and you can contact us at shareddiscoveryshow@gmail.com. Please send us those questions. We'd love to read them off on air. And again, thank you to BCTV for allowing us to put on this production. awesome and so wonderful of you. And before we go, we're going to sign off. So as we leave episode 24, make sure you play some games, have some fun, and be kind to others. So I'm going to let you sign it off. Take them away, Brad.
Yeah, absolutely. We love to hear from you. Let Victor know how this was. And remember, there's always another step. Appreciate the journey. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us. Bye.